Being here, guys. I'm gonna do a quick introduction of our panelists. Most of them need no introduction, but we'll do it anyway. This is Mario Winans, founder of Pickpock. Mario, I didn't get a bio from you, so I'll let you do your own really quick, and I'll do the rest of them.
Sure. Well, I've been in the industry 16 years. We established the studio back in '97 to work on console retail, but that turned out to be not a great idea, seeing as what's happened to console retail developers over time. It started shifting into digital distribution and self-publishing in 2007, and oh, not close enough to the mic. Started moving into digital distribution and self-publishing in 2007 on XBLA, PSN, and then shifted into mobile in 2009, established the Pickpock brand, and here we are.
Excellent. Next to Mario is Iman Mostavi. Iman is the co-founder and CEO of an independent mobile game studio, best known for Zombie Gunship, Tower Madness, and Nuts. The studio is called Limbic Software. But before making games, Iman was a researcher developing visualization applications for neuroscientists and contributing to autism research. Next to Iman is Chris Akavan. Chris is the president of publishing at Glue Mobile. He oversees user acquisition, marketing, advertising, monetization, third-party publishing, international expansion, strategic partnership efforts to strengthen and grow Glue's distribution and monetization capabilities. Prior to Glue, he served as Senior Vice President of Global Partnerships for Tapjoy, where he was an early member of the team and built the leading mobile advertising and monetization platform that has reached over 1 billion iOS and Android devices. And last but not least is UC Immonen.
Yeah.
UC is responsible for Rovio's Rovio Star's third-party publishing network. In this role, UC oversees the publishing portfolio as well as the partner screening and game title selection. So I'm going to start off with the panelists just asking a fun but simple question. I'll start with Mario. Outside of your own portfolio, and don't cheat, what are you playing today, either iOS or Android? What's your favorite game right now?
Well, actually, funnily enough, I'm getting into Clash of Clans.
Oh.
I gave up on Candy Crush a couple of months ago for reasons I won't go into. But,
you finished it, right?
Well, yeah, no. But I really enjoying two things about it. You know, trying to work out the math of maximizing my clan and the defenses I have, and the other meta game of trying to stop Supercell from monetizing me. So
okay. Yeah.
That seems to be going all right so
yeah.
far.
Good. Iman?
Lately, I've been playing a lot of Kingdom Rush Frontiers. I think that game is just super polished, and even though it's just a sequel to their original, it's one of those games that's almost perfect. Everything about it. The tower defense genre is, was a little bit played out on mobile, but they somehow managed to bring a game that is still fresh, and it's just really beautiful and fun to play.
Awesome.
I've been playing a lot of Game of War, the new game from Machine Zone, similar to a game these guys up front make, but I think they do a really good job of taking kind of cutting edge, mechanics from Asian MMOs and making them very Western friendly.
I need to a little bit go with the same games that the other guy said. I've tried to kind of many months now quit playing Clash of Clans, but I haven't been able to do that. Also, kind of Kingdom Rush has been kind of really something that has kept me awake like over the last month. So,
UC, I'm proud of you. You've admitted that you're playing a game from your Finnish rival, so it's big for you. With the panel, I'm going to mostly address Android and iOS, unless one of you wants to mention another platform that you think is viable and worth talking about, or that you're interested in. But I'm going to stick to iOS and Android unless any of you have objections. Or okay, all right. So what I know from you guys and what I've seen is most of your titles you initially build for iOS, or at least build an iOS and Android version at the same time. But with some of the numbers that we're seeing, All Things Digital, what was their announcement this week? It reports that Google Play has more app downloads in Q2 than the App Store. And there was also a recent announcement that Google is now dominating the tablet market. So with you guys focusing on iOS, maybe I'm wrong and this isn't true, but if you guys are focusing on iOS first or both at the same time, do you see with these new numbers that changing at all? That maybe Android will be the focus, iOS secondary? Or is that already happening?
I can start. So I think it's more important to kind of understand the kind of different geographies rather than the platform. So even though the numbers look quite alike, then kind of for Western games and companies, you kind of with iOS you are hitting much bigger business opportunity if you are not strong in Japan, Korea, China, and that's kind of playing really big part in this kind of a number game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The opportunity on Android in Asia has definitely grown significantly. For Glue, in Q1 2012, only 10% of our revenue is coming from Asia, and Q1 this year, it's up to 30%. And so that's heavily driven by markets like China, Japan, Korea, and definitely Android is dominating in those markets.
That's all due to Chris's overseas expansion efforts. So.
As a really small studio, I'm talking about like 10 people, under 10 people, we've actually been pretty heavily focused on iOS even to date, but now it's getting to the point where the #1 feature request for all of our games on our Facebook page is Android. So people even say, are you guys scared of making money on the page? So we just can't ignore Android anymore at this point, but still, iOS is still the #1 platform.
Yeah, for us, we've seen a huge increase in installs on the Android side. We're now doing about 2.5 times as many Android installs as iOS installs daily. The value of those Android installs is a lot lower, but we're seeing a bigger and bigger percentage of our revenues coming from Android, and at the very least, we're focused more and more on doing simultaneous releases, because we've seen when we get big spikes on Android downloads, that actually has a big impact on drawing iOS users back into our games and increasing the downloads on that platform as well. So, Android we're taking a lot more seriously right now, though we're not quite at that point where we would lead on it. Yeah,
so I wanted to address that. So out of any of the panelists, you said at the very least you build the game for both platforms. How long do you think it'll be before you build a game that's on Android first? Or is that just too hard to say?
Well, I think for us, just on that last point, recognizing that the word-of-mouth virality across those two platforms, there's such a multiplier effect that you get when when the game is out on both platforms at the same time. I think we're always going to be releasing on multiple platforms at the same time from now on. I think if we were to do something more experimental or we weren't sure about, maybe that might go to Android first just because it's quicker to update, and possibly we might start betaing on Android to tune a game that way because it's a bit easier.
Excellent. So with Android becoming something you're more and more focused on, and especially with releases, releases at the same time, does this make you guys look more at licensed engines like Unity or Cocos is a more viable thing to do because it's supposed to help you launch on both cross-platform wherever. So when looking at an engine, would this be one of the reasons you would look at using an engine versus building something in-house yourself?
I can tell you for Glue that we develop almost all of our games in Unity, and that's a big part of it is the ease of cross-platform support.
Yeah.
We've done the exact opposite. We've developed a unique engine for every single one of our games. So that has actually boxed us in, and it's part of the reason why we haven't been able to spread to that many platforms as quickly. However, it depends on the type of game you're making. If you're making a game that's pushing the hardware to the limit, or you're doing shaders in a crazy way, or taking advantage of new features of the platform that the third-party engines don't quite support yet, there are advantages to having your own engine still.
Yeah, Iman, I want to ask more of that. So when you guys first launched Zombie Gunship, there probably wasn't an engine that was, I mean, Unity was barely on mobile, if at all. There wasn't really probably a viable option. If you were to launch Zombie Gunship today, would you use an engine like Unity to help with the cross-platform, or would you stick with your custom in-house engine?
So the answer to that question really depends on the type of team you have. So our CTO would say that even today he would still write his own engine for it, and that is just due to the fact that we have the in-house expertise to do so. And if you don't have engine programmers on your team that are really, really into that kind of thing, then you should leverage an engine, a third-party engine, and let them deal with that, and you can focus on making the game. But I'm sure that you could make a game like Zombie Gunship in Unity in this day, and it would probably look just as good. But we would probably just stick with our own engine because we're used to it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Angry Birds titles have been developed with our in-house technology, and that has enabled us to simultaneously launch like all the different platforms, including all the feature phones and so on. So, but now going forward, because games are more like games as a service type of things, where you need to think that this might be kind of something that I'm going to maintain like years ahead. So when you are kind of developing something on Unity, it's much more kind of feasible to outsource at some point of the production, even the game management and updating, and that's one of the reasons. Of course, the kind of Unity is something where the kind of prototyping is a lot faster and so on, and developing fast. So going forward, we are definitely looking that direction.
Yeah. So did you wanna?
Yeah, for us, you know, we've rolled our own technology for a long time. We have cross-platform tech that goes, you know, almost between console to mobile. We have used Unity for a couple of our games, and it's actually slowed us down a little bit in the porting process, because we use so many different partner plugins and stuff that we're starting to do that's non-standard online. That it's actually more of a burden to do some of that stuff in Unity. So I have no problems recommending Unity for up-and-coming developers, but it's just, you know, one of those things where when you want to do something outside the box or really tune, Unity's a bit limited that way.
Okay. So that brings up a question. So say there's someone, I don't know, from Adobe or any other software company in the audience, and they're thinking about building a game development engine. What would you guys be looking for? What's missing with Unity or Unreal or Coco's 2DX? Is there something missing that you guys would say? I mean, Chris, obviously, they love Unity. They use it for all their games, he said. But for the other guys, is there something that's really missing, or there'd be a hook that would say, you know what, I want to use that engine. That would be just amazing for all my games? Or is there nothing that specific?
I think where we've been most successful using third-party engines is where we have source licenses.
Yeah.
You know, when you can't actually get to the underlying systems, that's the part that gets frustrating for us. So if there's a third-party engine, I think you need to offer some kind of source license so that the developer can get in and tinker with it.
Okay. Okay.
For us, a lot of the engines are kind of a little bit overweight. They're just too much, just generalized. And when you care about reducing your load times by 1 second and all that kind of stuff, then you have to try to roll your own solution to get that level of performance.
I need to say that my technical expertise in this area is kind of so shallow that I'm not gonna kind of comment on this.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think, you know, these guys definitely had some things to say about it. So back to back to platforms. So Android versus iOS. Do you guys see a huge difference in user discoverability on either platform? Is one better than the other? And I guess what roles do the Google Play Store and the App Store have in this? Is the Google Play Store much better? Is the Apple App Store much better? How is organic discovery on each platform versus each other that you guys have seen?
Well, for us, again, in the last year, there's been a huge shift where we just see far more organic downloads on Android. It's easier just to release a title and do nothing and generate downloads on that platform, whereas you really have to work on the App Store now, just because the way that the storefront's been changing and the way that the rankings have been tweaked, you kind of already have to be up there for people to find you easily. So and I think there's a little bit more transparency in the kind of featuring side of things as well. The Google Play team seems to be a little bit more accessible and open with what's happening and not happening, whereas Apple, it's like, well, maybe we might be doing something, and when you find out is when you're either on the store or you're not.
Yeah, I agree with Mario's comment about there being a bit more organic discoverability on Android. We're seeing that in our games. I'd say as far as paid user acquisition goes, they're becoming very similar to the two platforms, especially as the whole burst marketing mentality on iOS is no longer very relevant. So in terms of paid strategy, it's becoming very similar in terms of really targeting quality and ROI and not really worrying about burst volume.
Chris, sorry, UC. I wanted you to elaborate on that because I agree with you. The burst days are over.
Right.
But I want you to elaborate why you think so.
Well, obviously the banning of incentivized downloads had a lot to do with that. So today, to actually do an effective burst, it costs a ton of money. And at that point, you're almost better leveraging that amount of funds in a very targeted manner to drive ROI specifically, instead of just trying to dump the truck and hope that the organic, users you get through the charts are going to back out, ROI positive.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, it's even. I know it's possible, but with the amount of money that's in this industry now, the type of corporations or brands that are playing in mobile gaming, do you even think it's possible, even if someone wanted to do a burst campaign, how likely is it a burst campaign with incentivized installs would result in the top 10 positioning?
I'd say it's very unlikely now that you'd be able to just buy your way up there unless you're doing something shady. Like there has to be a big component of just pure organic lift along with heavy paid promotion to get up in the charts.
Yeah, I agree. UC, did you want to elaborate?
No, I think like kind of from technical discovery point of view, those app stores are not that different than for us. We are driving kind of a majority of our downloads through our cross promotion from our existing player base. So that's pretty much kind of which is taking out the kind of a component of discovery from the App Store side.
Okay. Is there, just a quick question, is there anyone from Apple in the audience? Raise their hand. Okay. So now you guys don't have to be scared to answer this question. So what I'm hearing, and the question I want to ask from all of your opinions, is the Apple App Store, is it broken? I mean, does necessarily the best games get discovered by users, or are there a lot of high quality games that just can't get discovered because it's a broken process? If no one wants to address that, I understand. If someone does, I'd love to hear it.
I wouldn't say it's broken. I think the rules are always changing, and you have to be kind of following and current to try to play the game the way it's being played right now. It used to be that if you just put out a good, fun game, it would get to the top of the charts by virtue of there being no real competition. And then, at some point, everyone had a good game, and you also had to have good marketing. Now you have to have good marketing, a good game, and also get a little bit lucky, or maybe those intangibles, like you happen to go and make connections with the right people who will cross-promote your game, which will make it get seen by someone who can feature your game. These are all the kind of things that you have to be doing to try to get discovered or have your app have a better chance of being discovered.
I agree.
Safe answer, Mario.
Yeah, I don't think either store's broken. I mean, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to improve. Like one of the things, for example, and we've given this feedback directly to the platforms, is it'd be nice if they would at least minimize or somehow hide apps you already have installed, right, to make room for apps, new apps to get discovered.
Yeah, it's bizarre that that's not already being done, but what can you do? Anything to add, Jussi?
No, I think kind of times are tougher than ever now for apps to get discovered. So you need to do all the tricks to get your app there and kind of use all the different discovery methods to boost it. And hope for the best.
Yeah, well, this is Rovio saying this. They have all the money in the world, and they're still worried about like the costs of acquiring users and such. So on that point, I could go down my list of questions, but I want to make this a little bit more interactive. So if the audience has any questions they want to address immediately, I saw him first. I'll go to you next. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Tomi Huttula from Kabam. So I would have a question. Do you think that there should be something optimized for free to play, like some tools or things that we should be getting to accelerate making free to play games specifically?
In terms of monetization, or
actually anything
Okay.
which is different in free to play games compared to, let's say, paid games, or do we need more optimized tools for free to play games?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we're rolling all our own stuff at the moment, and yeah, it's hard. I mean, it would be great if there was a set of tools out there that would help. I don't know what third-party solutions are out there, but yeah, there's a lot that you have to do to be effective. So yeah, actually, it's a good question.
I can answer just in terms of some new tools that we've been experimenting with that look interesting, that I think solve new problems. Like Session M is a pretty interesting solution to potentially build a loyalty points program into a free-to-play game that encourages people to keep playing, and then eventually they can cash in some rewards for like a gift card. And also more recently, we've heard about a platform called K-Invite that basically powers incentivized inviting of friends to join a game. Also a good fit for a free-to-play title.
Yeah, we are also kind of now experimenting Playhaven platform kind of segmentation and as well as kind of lifetime value maximization for different segments. So let's see how it plays out, but it at least kind of looks promising.
As like a super indie developer, I can tell you that we don't really spend any time doing those kinds of low-level optimizations on the free-to-play and monetization side of things. We're too busy just trying to make the game and get it out the door. But I think if you have a good enough game and you're doing the marketing right, that if your monetization is just not so far out to left field, it'll do well enough that you can then optimize it after the fact. Or in some cases, just you'll get a positive ROI on your project, even if you didn't extract every one bit of potential revenue that you could have gotten out of it. You can just keep your company afloat that way, and not have to worry about the details too much.
So I mean, you guys have talked a lot about iOS and Android.
Yep.
My question was Facebook, right?
Yep.
As a third platform where you guys may have a lot of users, is this now completely out of the picture? I mean, anybody you talk to is not really thinking as much Facebook right now, but as a cross-platform thing for game promotion, does it help to have your game also on Facebook if you had the opportunity to easily put it there, or it's no longer a thought anymore?
Yeah, we're actually pushing back into PC, Mac, and the browser, specifically Facebook, over the course of the next year for that reason. And that, again, it's about making that that virality density, just much stronger. So we don't expect to be making a lot of revenue there, but we think that again, that multiplier effect of having the game across more platforms will be a flow-on effect.
But for example, if you use Unity, why would it be so hard to just have a Facebook presence also? It should not be that difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can support the Facebook platform, there definitely are benefits there. I mean, for us, our games are designed so specifically for the mobile form factor that's kind of a reason we don't launch them on browser. But I can tell you that paid acquisition on Facebook has become a huge part of our user acquisition strategy, and I think that's pretty much true for all the major developers in the space now. So from that perspective, that platform is very, very critical to mobile acquisition.
I think there's a lot of benefits if you do cross-platform games, and if you are running games on browser, there's a lot of benefits when you can actually in real time do updates, and you can see A/B testing with immediate impact. So of course, because of the discovery part, there's a clear benefits, but also from the kind of a development and kind of a soft launching point of view.
Okay. So Chris, you mentioned buying from Facebook. It's a great time to bring this up because Facebook just launched. They're now a third-party mobile games publisher. I guess, what do you think about that? And does that change your opinion or your mind of actually buying traffic from them?
Doesn't change our opinion. I mean, I think it's a very interesting model, very similar to what obviously Kakao and Line and those platforms are doing. So it's kind of a natural extension being Facebook and having their distribution power. And I think we can expect to see that happening more and more across multiple different distribution sources where, you'll have multiple platforms distributing a game and just taking a rev share on the game rather than charging upfront for user acquisition.
Anyone else on the panel have an opinion on Facebook publishing business? Can they pull it off? Is it?
There's nothing specific. I haven't read the details, but
Yeah.
there's nothing that is super attractive from an indie dev perspective. We're probably going to keep doing self-publishing as long as that's still viable.
Yeah, I think just from the model, it's not something that we'd explore. I think it's probably a good opportunity for smaller developers that don't have an established base that need the leverage that Facebook can provide. We actually don't do any paid acquisition, so from that perspective, it doesn't make any difference to our business.
Yeah. So you don't do any paid acquisition. Aman, I don't think you do paid acquisition.
Nope.
Chris, I know you guys do. You guys don't do a lot of.
We have done some, and that's mostly kind of to build kind of all the processes in place to be able to do user acquisition when we kind of have a free-to-play game with high enough LTV. At the moment, the kind of our cross-promotion leverage from the fan base is so huge, 250 million monthly active users, that it doesn't make any sense for us to acquire users at this point.
Yeah, especially with the costs being as high as
The
they are.
cost is crazy at the moment.
So I mean, it brings up another good point. So the costs, CPI costs, or the costs of the user, are so high. I mean, both platforms now, Android and iOS. How I want to address the indie guys. I mean, how do you guys survive? How do you do it? Like, the App Store is not a perfect mechanism for organic users. What are the channels in which you acquire users? Is it just you've launched games early enough that you have a user base now that you can cross-promote? How do you guys do it? How do you survive?
So being fortunate enough to have at least one hit from which to launch your future games from is a very good advantage, because then you don't have to burn actual cash to acquire users. We pretty much stick 100% to cross-promotion at this point. Paid user acquisition is just not something we can afford to do as an indie studio, but how we survive is by just keeping the studio very lean, and therefore you don't have to make a ton of money to have a very successful and stable company if your team is small enough.
Did your hit get kind of just organically blew up, or was it featured by Apple, or how did you guys initially get that game to get discovered?
The first game we released, Tower Madness, was featured, and it was back when the App Store only had about 10,000 games on it. So
what year was that?
This is 2009.
Okay.
And it was a lot easier to get featured back then, just due to the lack of, it was the first 3D tower defense game, and therefore it had something special that the platform wanted to highlight. You can still do that to, iOS 7's coming out. If there's something that you can try to sneak into your app that will make it something Apple would want to feature, every time there's one of these shifts, it's a chance for indies or any studio really to try to kind of break away from the rest of the pack.
Are these similar to what you've seen, Mario, from your studio, or do you have other strategies that have helped you guys succeed, not acquiring users?
Yeah, I mean, we had some early success as well. You know, we leveraged a few free app of the day programs. We were fortunate to have multiple games with Apple featured, so we managed to get that critical mass just at the right time as it started getting harder and harder. Something else that we leveraged that's been very successful is cross promotions with other developers and publishers, and Limbic helped us out multiple times on stuff, and that's just a reciprocal, you know, click swap thing that we do with about a dozen different publishers now. So that's a great way to be able to tap into a large audience very fast, relatively cheaply.
Yeah.
That has meaningful impact on driving our stuff up the charts.
Yeah, so you mentioned it, so cross-promotion, you prefer just joining a small faction of developers and cross-promoting between the few of you instead of joining like a huge network like Chartboost. So you prefer the one-to-one or, you know, 3-to-3 relationship?
You know, I think you know, it's a different set of people that we might contact for any particular game, and you know, being able to align yourself with a developer that you trust, you know, you share the same values, and being able to do a deal like that where it feels more like you're helping each other out than sort of, you know, really leveraging each other's asset. You know, it's just been a really positive way, I think, to build cooperation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tools track, so what I'm leaning into, I'm in agreement with you. You know, you find games that have similar quality to yours, similar genre, and then you want to you know, share those users instead of joining a huge network. Are there effective tools for these smaller cross-promotion relationships, or do you guys just build this out on your own?
Well, we've primarily been using Chartboost.
Yeah, so you use their...
We do some of it through banner ad stuff and our own tech, but Chartboost actually gives you great transparency on the whole thing, and that's, you know, that's great for making sure that the trust relationship stays open and honest, and you know, you can see the results right there.
Yeah, cross-promotion is a heavily trust-based thing, especially before the days of Chartboost when you couldn't really verify anything besides maybe using a bit.ly link to count the clicks or something like that. But now there's other tools, I think, where you can use like Kochava and various other things to actually track conversions and make it a lot more clear that, you know, something you won't be able to, you won't be getting ripped off if you're doing a cross-promotion. But if you trust the partners, then it's not a purely business transaction. You're kind of helping each other out, and it comes in especially helpful for launches for independent developers, where when you want to try to get as many eyeballs on your game, if you have a dozen partners, of which maybe 8 of them have games that align with yours, you can really get enough fuel under the fire to get your game out the door.
What about the giants or non-indies at the end? Would you guys dare engage in a cross-promotion relationship with titles outside of your own portfolio, or is it enough just to have your own internal stuff?
For us, it's a bit difficult at this scale to cross-promote with another developer, especially like you guys mentioned, the trust thing is huge, right? Yeah. So at our scale, that's difficult to reproduce with other big companies that are very competitive with what we're doing. So in that context, the most effective way for a company like us to handle it is just to buy and sell traffic, and where you're actually assigning an economic value to what you're buying and selling. There's full transparency and is built on ROI, because the trust angle is very hard to make work at this level.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are currently only cross-promoting our own games, and now also games that we publish under Rovio Stars. But other than that, we haven't started to kind of actively seeking cross-promotion partners.
Okay, excellent. Questions from the audience? Go ahead. Wait for the mic. Sorry. They instructed me of this.
The parties last night must have been good. Like 3 people are falling asleep here.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was your perspective about the Windows Store? And also Microsoft announced this connection between the engine on Windows 8 and the Xbox One. So what was your perspective about their strategy and their store?
Well, no,
Doesn't sound good.
I think you know, console publishing is an interesting beast. You know, Microsoft's been pretty locked down for a long time, and their latest announcement seems quite reactionary, and they haven't really provided any details. So I'll believe it when I see it, that there's an actual opportunity for independent developers on the Xbox One. On the Windows Store side, you know, it's not a big revenue driver right now. You know, very small part of our business, and we're being very selective of the titles that we're taking across to Windows Phone. So, you know, we think there may be something there kind of longer term, as I mentioned before, kind of going back into that PC Mac space, where the Windows 8 store might be more of a piece of our business, and then, you know, the ecosystem around that. But right now, it's just not driving the numbers that we need.
So we have been actually quite successful in the Windows Store, and that's kind of probably a few things, like there's a first mover advantage, and then the kind of a competition is on totally different level compared to kind of other stores. So kind of you still have kind of opportunities also in the kind of a more kind of a niche stores at the moment, if you are kind of there on kind of a early enough, and you get the kind of a good promotion.
So I actually, it's a great point. You guys have had success in Windows. What I would want to know from you, and maybe the indies can address it too, is I'm positive that quality games, and especially someone at your level, Microsoft's throwing a lot at you, offering, you know, to promote it, throwing you free users. I guess the question would be, like, these guys build great games, but they might not have the resources of Rovio. Even if Microsoft, if these guys had to go and build specifically for that platform, would you think it would be worth it for them with the amount of promotion, users, et cetera, Microsoft could throw at them? Or would it not, someone with a small team, would it not really back out in the end for them to go and, you know, put other projects on hold and build for Windows? I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question, but
yeah.
I have kind of I have seen kind of success cases with the small indies who have kind of for some reason taken the kind of a road that they have selected to publish on Windows Phone over the other platforms, and the kind of a competition is totally different level. So you have kind of a way better chances of getting kind of visibility and that. And if you go kind of competing on iOS, that's probably the most competitive marketplace across the industries.
Yeah. Has, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but has, I mean, you guys build great games. Has Microsoft approached you and asked you to build on Windows, and have you guys actually analyzed it enough to really know, like, would it be worth doing or not? Is this something that has happened, or is it just kind of in theory right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had a long relationship with Microsoft.
Yeah.
You know, we have been approached. We have taken titles, or a title to Windows Phone on the basis of their interest in getting some of our stuff on there, and that conversation continues about other titles in our portfolio. And there are incentives there, and there is support, but I think, you know, the comments I made before are kind of even in the context of that, where it still doesn't quite work for us a lot of the time. And we're exploring opportunities now where, you know, what you were getting at before was really the opportunity cost. What's the opportunity cost of us, you know, not shipping a title a month earlier by devoting resources to doing something else? So we're exploring, you know, outsourcing to third parties to get titles into Facebook, Windows Phone, PlayStation Vita, those sorts of opportunities.
Awesome.
So that's the way that we're tackling that. We're as far as independent studios go, we're pretty big, but we don't have that scale of
Right,
a Glue or a Rovio.
yeah.
I think the challenge that Microsoft and BlackBerry and all these other platforms that have not really gotten the critical mass yet are facing is that they can't incentivize a developer that already has a successful franchise on like iOS or Android enough to really make you shift resources away to the if you just do the math, if we just did a sequel and focused 100% on shipping it a month earlier on iOS, it will probably make more than the entire incentive that the other platform will pay us. So it just, until you start hearing success stories of just organic games becoming hits, I don't think it's going to be worth it yet.
Yeah, I think listening to this panel, there's not, UC's definitely had success there, but as far as indies go, it doesn't sound like that much success.
So a question from me, for the indie studios out there, the small guys, what do you think the role of sites like Kickstarter can do? Not just to get the money, but you can get a huge amount of essentially free distribution and awareness from all the fanboys that are out there. What's your opinion on sites like Kickstarter?
I don't know what percentage of games that start on Kickstarter actually ever ship.
Yeah.
So that's issue number one. I think it's good. I actually personally know someone who's had a successful Kickstarter campaign and is almost done with his game, and it looks like it worked out for him. It helped him pay for the artist that he needed to finish his game. And how successful that's going to be for him is if he's going to have a success story and be on a panel next year, that remains to be seen. I think it's a little sketchy. I'm personally pretty skeptical when I see most Kickstarters, because it's like, give me free money, I'm going to spend your money, it's not even my money. So I don't really trust that person to spend it very judiciously. And in general, like when you're spending other people's money, you're not going to be stingy enough with it, and you might make some careless mistakes. So I'd rather give support and guidance to someone who wants to spend their own money on developing if they're going to start up an indie
I was commenting not from the point of the money, but the idea of the free awareness that putting a Kickstarter campaign gets your game.
Well, there are a few of these campaigns that became super successful, viral hits, and got a lot of traffic, but I'm pretty sure that for every one of those, there's like 1,000 games that you've never heard of. So it's just like the App Store all over again.
It could also go against you, too. I've heard anecdotal evidence and people talking that games that have launched, it depends, like these guys aren't going to raise money from, they're indies, but someone that's just launching the first game puts it on Kickstarter, it doesn't get traction, and then they go out and try to raise money. VCs or investors will point to that and say, well, no one wants the game, we're not going to invest in that. So it might generate buzz, but on the other hand, I've heard that it might come back to bite you. Interesting. Any question? Anyone else? Yes, you.
So I was wondering about advertising. For a while, it was kind of out of vogue. Everything was microtransactions, and then I saw stuff like Rovio switching Amazing Alex on Android to an ad-based model. I was wondering if that plays into your business strategies at all these days, and how that differs from iOS to Android.
Yeah, we're pretty bullish on advertising. We leverage a lot of different types of advertising in our games. Over half of our revenue comes from advertising. So, we've been a strong supporter of that model. From a cultural standpoint, it was kind of hard to get the team behind that. And even believing that advertising could be strong enough in terms of revenue to achieve what we wanted to achieve
Also
on that side.
right? The advertising.
But I think for us there are huge opportunities on the advertising still. I think we could probably double the revenue that we're doing now with just optimizing the way we're approaching advertising and utilizing some more advanced methods and ad units that are coming through. But for us, there's a lot more growth to be had in becoming more sophisticated with our iApp and our segmentation and that sort of thing. So I think advertising is a great way to monetize product.
I fully agree. We are kind of heavily looking into that space, and we have our own ad sales now, so we are not anymore kind of looking third parties to run our ads, and also kind of through Toons animation that can be watched from Angry Birds. There's a kind of a pretty highly paying opportunities in video advertising as well. So definitely looking at that.
Yeah, and the last number I think we disclosed publicly is advertising makes up about 15% of our total revenue. So it's a meaningful channel, and I think there are growth opportunities. And I agree, things like video are starting to become much stronger opportunities for additional revenue.
So I'm going to ask one more question, then I'll turn it over completely to the audience. Not necessarily, it's kind of based on, this is kind of a segue to what I want to ask, but from the panel, each of you, are you ever going to launch another paid app, or is it all free to play? You know, is there any reason right now to launch a paid app? Or is there many reasons to launch a paid app, and the news reporting how much more money free-to-play apps make than paid apps, is that not something that you really consider?
I think for Glue, we're definitely committed to free-to-play, so we will not release a paid app. But I think there are cases where it makes sense, like that new game, Breach and Clear, where it's like a really good game, and they didn't try to force free-to-play monetization into it. So I think it's kind of like case by case, and think about what is fun about the game, and if the game works better as a paid download, I don't think that should be off the table.
Yeah.
If you look on the App Store now, actually, you'll see a lot of tower defense games that are about $3, and that's actually holding pretty strong. And they even have IAP, but even new games that are coming out, like Kingdom Rush Frontiers, is $3. Bloons Tower Defense is also a paid game. They're not. I don't think they're leaving money on the table. Actually, Bloons TD is really high in the top grossing charts as well. So maybe it's just strategy gamers or whatever that are able to, when willing to pay. On iOS specifically, maybe that's not the case on Android. I can't comment on that as we haven't launched anything on Android yet. But there are certain, I mean, it's a valid business model to charge money for your app still, I think. It's not completely gone the way of the dinosaur.
Yeah. Breach and Clear actually hit, they're in the top 50, I think, top grossing. So.
Yeah, I think if you have a strong niche that you're playing to and you have a quality title, you can get away with that. You know, titles like, you know, the fighting fantasy style, choose your own adventure type stuff. There are some people that are just really, really into that kind of experience and are prepared to pay a lot of money for it. For us, you know, we're heavily invested in free to play, and for us, a lot of our success comes from driving that scale. So I can't imagine that we would do anything at this stage else that would be paid, unless it's taking a legacy premium title that we have from another platform across into the tablet space. Yeah, okay.
Yussi, what do you guys think?
I can, with confidence, say that we are going to launch at least one more paid application.
with real confidence, right?
Yeah, but going forward in the casual market, it's pretty obvious that the free-to-play is way to go. And kind of through the cross-promotion, it makes all sense at the moment.
Yeah, and I think probably one more.
Well, I think we've hit our time limit. So thank you, Mickey, and the panel.
Yeah.
I know the panel will come off stage and stand in the corridor. So if you want to ask one-on-one questions, that's the perfect time. But we're going to be set up for the next presentation. So please join me in thanking the panel.